85% of eligible voters voted in the 2016 presidential election. As you can see here by this chart, this shows how people voted in the past handful of presidential elections. And what you notice from looking at the gray bar is a slight trend upward and downward, but what's most important is that regardless of the year, it maintained to be around 50 to 60% of voters, of eligible voters voting. That's not that many. Each vote counts towards change you wish to see in the community, and every voice deserves to be heard, especially those that are often silenced. It's important to exercise your rights to contribute to the change you wish to see in the world. So today, I would like to explain to you why more people should vote, why each vote does in fact matter, and how to become a voter. I myself am a registered voter, and I vote in even the smallest of elections because every time I vote, I want to ensure that the people elected into office have my best interest in mind. And after the past couple of years, becoming more involved in politics, I've come to notice that not many people think voting even matters. But let me first explain why voting does matter, and let me combat some of the beliefs about why it doesn't. The people elected into office are our lawmakers and policymakers, and these people are elected either by popular vote, such as people in the Senate or House of Representatives, or by the Electoral College, like the President. But either way, each voter's decision contributes and influences the outcome. Did you know that our elected officials can change the parameters of a voting district? This is called gerrymandering, according to Prokop of Vox. And this act of redistricting parts of a state is typically controlled by whichever party has majority control. So, this chart, this graphic, very easily explains how gerrymandering works. As you can see here, if we drew very neat lines around this district based on population, blue would win. But if you're smart about it, you can draw districts in such a way that you can encompass certain, like everybody can be blue here. This will go blue, and this will go blue. But for three other districts, despite there being less people who would vote red in the state, they can ensure that they win three districts, and blue only wins two. And this can be shown right here in the North Carolina district map. Each district is a different color and it's numbered, but what you can see is that quite a few of these districts look a little wonky, such as 12 goes up like a snake, 9 almost pinches off here, 4, 13. And what the elected officials have done, they've gerrymandered these districts in such a way that they will give them a voting advantage, an advantage to ensure the seat. And if it is our elected officials that can decide where to draw the line, literally, they can draw them in any way that will benefit them. And this would mean that minority votes in gerrymandered districts would be worth less, and they may even be silenced entirely and overshadowed by other votes. But this can be changed. Not every person who is eligible to vote votes. As you can see in this chart, the majority of black people voted for Biden in the 2020 election. But what's more notable, if you're looking right here at this percentage underneath the demographics, black people only made up about 12% of the vote in total. And this low voter turnout of black people is related to a few key issues. First and most problematic is voter suppression. There's always been laws in place to specifically disenfranchise black voters. Think of Jim Crow after Reconstruction. However, in recent years, these laws have become much less visible. According to Pryor, Herrick, and Davis, voter ID laws, which are laws that require voters to present a valid ID while voting, are likely to drastically reduce voter turnout of minority groups. This is because there's an added cost of obtaining a valid ID, and there is some confusion about what constitutes a valid ID. Also, according to Pryor, Herrick, and Davis, minority races were asked more often to present an ID when voting. This would mean that the minority races who tend to feel it more in their pocket if they have to spend money on a valid ID or are more confused about what it is, are more often asked to present an ID, and this effectively prevents them from voting. According to Magnum, voter turnout of black voters is directly related to their political involvement, meaning the more politically involved they are, the more likely they are to vote. So this would mean because of things like voter suppression exist and they actively discourage and sometimes try to prevent black people from voting entirely. You are creating an atmosphere where majority people, white people, are saying this is not a place for you to involve yourself, so they don't involve themselves politically, and then they don't vote. So now that we know why people don't vote, let's look at how we can fix this. This may seem a little counterintuitive, but the best way to combat voter suppression and low voter turnout is to get out and vote. While there are things in place to undermine votes and voters, if enough people go out and vote, this could all be changed. It is important to stay up to date on policies and laws that are being attempted to be passed, because this will affect you and many other citizens. So now that we know how to stop voter suppression, let's look at a future where everyone votes. What would a map look like where all disenfranchised voters can vote? Well, this is a map of the 2016 presidential election. Up in the top left corner, you can see this map would show the electoral college and how the states would look if only people of color voted. This is important to note because all these states are blue. If you had a higher voter turnout of people of color, this could swing a major election. I mean, there are more than 12% of Americans are black. So if more black people voted and could vote, they could swing major elections. If the people who are denying your rights are voted out of office, and you replace them with people who ensure you keep your rights, you can keep future generations from having to face the same oppression, and you can ensure that in the following years, you maintain your right to vote. According to Schlarsman, Verba, and Brady, non-voters tend to be more liberal in their views. So this means that if every eligible voter voted, there probably would not be laws in place in the first place to disenfranchise voters. This is important because even if a law or policy or even a common practice doesn't directly affect you, it does affect millions of Americans and even non-Americans. And it is our duty and our responsibility to be involved and make decisions on what is right and just and what isn't. So let's recap and summarize voting and its importance. In conclusion, minority voters, especially black voters, are often disenfranchised. And this works to make their voice either totally silenced or worth less than white votes. However, the mobilization of these voters can drastically turn elections, and it can ensure you keep your right to vote. And it can keep everybody's right to vote for future generations. So if you would like to register to vote, you can go through your local DMV if you already have an ID, or you can go through rockthevote.com. All you need is an address and a social security number. And by registering to vote and voting, you can ensure that we maintain our democracy for the next 250 years.